Hey, hello, my Redskins fans. Welcome back once again, my fellow feathered tribesmen, into this channel where we discuss everything Washington Redskins. So do me a favor, go into that kitchen of yours, grab yourself a nice tall glass of whatever your preference, kick your feet back, take a relax, let me take the helm for a little while into this channel where we may not always agree, but the admission here is free. I am your West Coast host. I am Burgundy Fly Guy, and welcome to another episode of the BFG Show. Well, it's been a long time since I've said those words. It's been a long time since I've done a show like this, the BFG Show. It's been since the off-season. This season has pretty much been marked with all of my Redskin reviews, all my Redskin previews, and a couple other videos here and there. So this is actually going to be the first time in a long time. Not much of an intro on this one like I normally am used to, but that's probably going to come later down the pike. A couple of issues that I wanted to address, a couple of issues that have come up as of late as far as this team is concerned, a couple of concerning situations, some things that I feel that need to be discussed, some issues that we're looking at as far as a team. As you can tell from the ledger to my left, you will see that I've got some topics here. Topic from the past, a couple current topics that we have. Without further ado, going into the first topic, for those of you that did not hear, Robert Griffin III, again, a name that I've been really glad this last season to not necessarily talk all that much about. He has not necessarily been at the forefront of a lot of video makers' tongues. He's been out of our consciousness for a while. And I feel kind of bad bringing his name up again, but he does find a way to make himself relevant, and it's not necessarily his fault, but he did have an interview, a very interesting interview on the Grant and Danny Show. For those of you who have not heard it, it's up on podcast. I suggest you take a listen to it if you're even somewhat remotely interested in what happened during the 2012 season. Not that I would really believe or take away a whole lot from the interview. It was interesting to hear him talk, and I got to tell you, one of the things that kind of puts this thing in perspective for me is I'm from the West Coast, and growing up as a young man in this area, I'm not a baseball fan. I don't like to watch baseball. I never like playing baseball. I sure as hell don't even like watching baseball, but baseball is a very popular sport here in the United States, as everybody knows. But up here in the Northwest, the Seattle Mariners are a very well-beloved team, and they have a very strong following. And back in the day, Ken Griffey Jr. was the cat's meow up here. Everybody loved Griffey, and when he ended up leaving for Cincinnati, it crushed a lot of people around here. Not in the aspect of like a Wayne Gretzky leaving the Edmonton Oilers type of crush, because that man hoisted trophies over his head. Ken Griffey was a well-beloved individual to the point where even after he left, for years after he had left, he still was dominating the headlines, and he had been playing on this, on that baseball team for probably 3 or 4 years, and he was still dominating headlines. It never occurred to me as to why in the world were we still reading about Ken Griffey when he hasn't been on the team and he doesn't even play here anymore? I mean, has he left that much of a lasting mark? Is it that they suck that much at winning that they're willing to grasp on to greater days? Not that those days were all that great with him on the team anyway, but for some reason he captivated the media, he captivated the people who were fans of the team, and they loved to hear about him. Fast forward to 2012, and of course we have a regal, if not, a pageantry type entrance from college football into the pros, with a first round draft selection, number 2 overall pick with the Washington Redskins selecting Robert Griffin III. Captivated this area and its fan base unlike anything that I have ever seen in my entire life. The guy could have done no wrong. And he wasn't just a media sensation in DC. It was all over the world as far as fan bases. People who enjoyed the sport of football, you could not travel very far without hearing this guy's name. And his magical 2012 season really propelled him onto a pedestal that was unlike anything other that I have seen before, coming from somebody who'd never won a Super Bowl yet. Just the future seemed limitless for us, and we all were drinking the Kool-Aid at that point. All of us were. Even I was. It helped me launch this station, to tell you the truth. It's what got me to launch this YouTube channel. The hopes of what would come after 2012. And, of course, we all know the story. And even still, after Robert Griffin III has not been on this football team for a number of years, we are still hearing about him. He is still dominating the headlines. He is still coming up. Every little tweet, every little mini-mart store purchase from kids' outfits. I mean, it's just, it almost seems like it's everything at this point. And then, of course, I don't think he necessarily helps the situation by coming out and tweeting at a moment when Redskin fans are at their most vulnerable. And I'll have to admit, at the time when I heard that he had tweeted what he had tweeted, I'll have to admit I was pissed. I was pissed that I felt that he was kind of kicking Redskin fans as they were down, coming up with these superficial comments about his time here, about what it meant to him, about what it did to him. And it's like, man, we're making this all about you after we just got our teeth kicked in by the Dallas Cowboys. You couldn't have picked a worse time to start whining and crying to me than now. And then after taking a look back at it, hearing from his perspective, I guess to a certain extent I could understand, but really the timing was horrible. But then again, how poignant was the timing in a lot of Robert Griffin III's issues while being here in D.C. and elsewhere? Timing seemed to be off if you were a fan of his, and very poignant if you were not a fan of his. And I was slowly starting to turn against him when he left and went to Cleveland, just because of the shenanigans that had taken place here in Washington and some of the things that were being said and some of his actions, too. I didn't necessarily approve of some of the actions that he had, and I'm sorry, I do get to judge an individual who's a public figure as much as he is, because he is a role model to a lot of people, regardless of the Charles Barkley-esque type attitude that a lot of these athletes take. When you're an athlete getting paid millions of dollars and you put yourself all over Nike and Adidas and Gatorade and all over every single cartoon and every single advertisement that comes up in my face that is inundating me and reminding me of the paychecks you're coming home with. The caveat to that, my friend, is the fact that you're a role model, so you're going to have to deal with that. And your actions are indicative of what that role model should or should not be. Coming out this last week, he starts to go into about woe is me in Washington after we lose to Dallas, something about how we didn't draft him into a system that agreed with him. There was not everybody in the organization that was on board. Blah, blah, blah. This, you cannot be successful unless you believe in your quarterback. And it sparked a lot of interest. It sparked a lot of remarks, and most of us have avoided it. And up until now, it wasn't until his interview where he actually came out and spoke on a Redskins media platform, where he was given a platform to speak, and he spoke his mind. I think what was said was very telling, but I also think what was unsaid was very telling as well. I don't necessarily know if I completely believe in everything that Robert Griffin III says. There's a lot of things that he said that happened during that 2012 season that I don't necessarily know if I really buy it. I'm willing to accept the fact that, yes, there were some things that went on that probably were sensationalized by the media. Exactly how much involved was his father? I mean, did he really go into the coach's room and start dictating what his son was and was not going to do? According to Robert Griffin III, that never happened. According to some media members, that did happen. I'm willing to believe that probably did not happen. I mean, who would sit there and take crap from anybody's father at the pro level? Probably nobody. Notwithstanding a two-time Super Bowl winning coach. I don't think any of that would necessarily happen, but I do believe that there were other things that did. Whether Robert Griffin III came in and said that I was not going to run these certain plays because I want to be a pocket passing quarterback, I believe that every single inch of the way. Just by the way that his 2012 season ended and the lack of wanting to repeat that, it made all the sense in the world to me. Now, I still think that part of our issue with making him relevant is part of the issue with all of us being unable to move on. This interview, if anything, this interview, as far as I'm concerned, has just made it that much more difficult to move on from the Robert Griffin III subject. This kind of reopens the scab wound. Coming back and talking about it, coming back and addressing this issue that should be over, that should be behind us, that should be in the past, because we got other things that we're looking forward to, and I think this is very, very reflective to how the situation with Kirk Cousins is going right now. More on that later. At some point, I think it is that we need to be able to find a way to move on. Now, his issue was not necessarily understanding why we'd bring a head coach in here who was not willing to work under a system that best suited the quarterback. Robert, you've got to understand that happens all the time. You may take it personally and you may want a platform in which to speak that, but you're speaking for about, I don't know, how many some odd millions of quarterbacks that have come into this league and have fallen under similar circumstances that no longer have a job. There's tons of them out there. Tons of them out there. You are no much more special than half of those individuals that don't have jobs anymore because they fell into a system that didn't necessarily agree with them. That's just the way the ball bounces, man. You're going to have to accept that. You're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm no different and better than anybody else that's washed up and not playing in this league anymore. Also, he didn't acknowledge Kirk Cousins. On two different occasions that I have noticed, one that was actually brought up and mentioned, there was another moment in which he did not mention Kirk Cousins' name. He did not want to acknowledge the fact that this team is actually somewhat successful under his predecessor. And when asked specifically about the success of a Kirk Cousins, he kind of bypassed it by saying that he knew the individual's mind and knew how competitive he was, and that was about it. That's almost indicative of a sociopathic behavior, being unable to willingly admit when you were wrong, when everybody else is the issue and everybody else is the problem. And that, I think, is very indicative of the type of person that Robert Griffin has become now, kind of that bitter individual who's looking back on issues where he still thinks he has a part to play in the NFL. That may be true. I mean, stranger things have happened. The way that some teams get as far as desperation goes when it needs to come, comes to a quarterback position, who knows? Tony Romo, as far as I'm concerned, still gets calls every once in a while to come back and play. So, very interesting things as far as the Robert Griffin III front comes. I really, really hope that this is not an issue that I talk about in the future. I, frankly, am tired of hearing and talking about Robert Griffin III. It sucks that I chose to talk about his subject today, but part of the reason why I talked about it today is the fact that it's going to have to be understood that his era is over, and part of the destruction of his exit in Washington, and I'm going to choose those words very, very carefully, is that there was a fallout from that destruction. And part of that fallout, it has left a franchise divided. You have got fans of this fan base that believe in Kirk Cousins, that believe he should get his money, that believes that he should get paid, and believes that he can carry us on to the next level. And then you have another section of Redskin fans that believe that there is nothing that he can do to take us to the next level. There's no amount of money that he is worth, that he is no better than some of the bottom basement quarterbacks that play in this league, and he does not have the ability in big games, primetime games, whatever games, to pull us out to victory, to give us a winning season, and to push us on to the next level. That's a divide that happens, and no matter what it is that Kirk does, he's never going to be good enough. And on the other side, no matter what Kirk does, he's never going to be the bad guy. He's never going to be culpable. He's never going to be accountable. It's hard to say. I'm not going to sit here and say that you are either or you're either for or you are against. In regards to me, whether I am for or whether I am against, it's tough to say. I am for any quarterback on this football team that is going to be successful. Any quarterback on this football team that can move the chains, that can score touchdowns, that can move this ball down the field, that can understand within a certain measure of competence how to run this football team and how to successfully move it and can motivate the people around him to do well. Robert Griffin III was not that person beyond 2012. He just wasn't. That team conspired against him. They conspired against him for a reason. This team has rallied behind Kirk, and they've actually pushed each other up to have a fairly successful season, fairly successful offensive season. You may sit here and gripe and bitch over certain plays, over certain times during a game. At the end of the day, Kirk Cousins can move those chains. He is within the top 10 best quarterbacks. He was in the top, 5 or 6 last year. I mean, Robert was only that person for 1 year. That was it. Kirk's been able to do this and actually break records on a much more monumental level without the gimmick of a read option offense. He's been able to do it with a pocket passing style, smart distribution of a football, and he's been able to get those chunk yardages to give us a measure of success that we haven't seen in this organization in a very, very long time. Probably 20 years. I would argue maybe even 30. Where I side on this situation is I am actually for Kirk Cousins. I am pro Kirk Cousins. If Kirk can make this ball move and this offense move in a united direction, I am for him. I am going to say that I am not an anti-Kirk Cousins individual. I want to see success on this football team, and I have certain expectations giving that idea behind him. Now, that is separate from my idea as far as contract negotiations are concerned, but more on that later. Actually, no. Let's go ahead and move right on into that now, the Kirk Cousins situation. Kirk Cousins situation is an interesting one. We've seen already a couple of vidmakers that have come out on this particular topic. A couple of you guys find it incumbent upon yourself to talk about the Kirk Cousins situation on just about every single one of your videos. I have to admit that's a little nauseating to listen to pretty much the same rhetoric over and over and over again. I tried to sum this up into one video and to put it in that video and to leave it at that. I'm going to talk about it pretty much again in this particular topic because I feel that the topic has come around full circle given the circumstances of our regular season. Our regular season is in dire straits, and dire straits is going to drastically affect negotiations for a Kirk Cousins contract. There's a lot of K's in that situation, a lot of C's and K's and cuss sounds. Just his performance right now with the minimal offensive line, with the minimal talent we have at wide receiver, and we do have minimal talent at wide receiver. There's only one that's been able to prove himself right now to do really, really well in clutch situations, and another one who's up and coming, and that's it. Everybody else in this roster at wide receiver is in an abysmal state. I think that just those limited situations are going to put him in a very precarious situation as far as negotiations concerned with other teams. Not necessarily with this one. How is this season going to affect Kirk's money? You're going to see that mark my words, you're going to see that every single week from here until the end of the season, until we start winning. If this team is not able to get healthy within a certain measure of time, then it's all going to be coming down on the quarterback. The blame's going to come down on the quarterback. The future negotiation contract situation is going to come up as a touching point, as a launching point, as a flash point, and we're going to be getting this debate over and over and over again. All of a sudden, the team's woes are not necessarily going to be centered so much around what it really needs to be centered around. It's going to be centered around the play of the quarterback. And that's pretty much at every position, whether you're offense, special teams, or defense. It's all going to become about Kirk and negotiating his next contract or which team he's going to play for next. That's just pretty much the way the ball's going to bounce as far as being a DC fan in the DC media market with quarterback woes. So the question comes up after seeing a lot of these videos, and Louis T brought one out before, and Louis T's stance on this situation has probably changed just a little bit, but for the most part, he's pretty much staying right on the same point that he was making before. And if you don't know necessarily what his opinion is, I'm pretty sure some of you do, but go on his video. He's got a really, really good video that he's put together. All of us vidmakers that are Redskin fans have been talking about this Kirk Cousins situation, and everybody's stance has pretty much stayed the same. My stance is pretty much staying the same as well. Given the current state of affairs, I don't think our situation really changes all that much from a team franchise standpoint. At the end of the day, it comes down to several questions, in my opinion. At the end of the day, can Kirk win? Because when we're paying him his money, not paying him his money, that's going to be one of the quintessential questions that is going to be answered, that is going to be indicative and reflected upon the money that we do or do not give him. Can he win? If we don't give him that money, then obviously the answer to the organization is no. If we do give him the money that he is asking for, then obviously the answer to that question is going to be yes. In my personal opinion, can we win with Kirk Cousins? My answer to that question is yes. I do think that we can win with Kirk Cousins. However, do not under any circumstances feel that given logic, if my answer to that is yes, then obviously the solution is to give him his money. Because that I don't agree with. I don't agree with giving him his money. Can we win with him? Can you win with a Kirk Cousins in your lineup at quarterback? Absolutely. But that's exactly that. You can win with him in your lineup. Take a look at the rest of the lineup. What's the rest of that lineup going to be looking like? Can he win a Super Bowl? In my honest opinion, can Kirk Cousins win a Super Bowl? My answer to that question is yes. I think Kirk Cousins has the potential to win a Super Bowl. And the only reason why I say that is based on quarterback play in the past from other football teams that have won Super Bowls. There's a couple quarterbacks out there that I can name right off the top of my head that were fairly average quarterbacks that went on to Super Bowls and went on to win Super Bowls. Do you need to be a super high-profile, extreme athlete to win a Super Bowl? No. Do you have to be a Pro Bowler to win a Super Bowl? No. Do I expect Kirk Cousins to be those things to win us a Super Bowl? Not necessarily. It'd be nice if he was, but I think everybody at this point knows that Kirk Cousins is not that individual. He is a slightly above average quarterback. At the end of the day, slightly above average quarterback. That is it. He's not phenomenal. By any stretch of the imagination, he is not phenomenal. He's not a physical specimen. He's not hard to bring down. He's not easy. He's not. He makes really, really smart, calculated decisions, and that's what makes him above average, in my opinion. He's got a very, very decent arm. Sometimes he makes stupid decisions, but then again, every quarterback in this league does. Every quarterback in this league does. I'm not willing to just put that moniker on Kirk Cousins. So the next question that comes up is, would you pay him? Those are three questions right there. 1, can Kirk win? 2, can Kirk win a Super Bowl? 3, would you pay him? And 3 is indicative of how you would answer those first 2 questions. There is no third question if your answer to the first 2 was no. Don't even worry about answering the third questions because it's irrelevant. Your answer is no, you don't think you can win with him? Well, then obviously you're not going to pay him. Third question is, can you pay him? Or would you pay him? Depending upon the terms of the contract, and I can tell you right now, with what his agent is going to ask, I probably wouldn't pay him. I would probably say no. My stance on that situation has not faltered. It has not changed. Kirk Cousins is on a trajectory to having a very similar season that he did last year. Unless if things go terribly wrong this year, and I don't think he's willing to take that gamble for anybody. Not for his future. He's going to make smart, calculated decisions, which means he's going to target Jamison Crowder much, much more often, just like he did in that Dallas game. He's going to forget about the 2 wide receivers, and he's going to go straight after the money man. He's going to go straight after Jamison Crowder, and when Jordan Reed comes back, he's going to hit him, and every once in a while sprinkling that ball to Vernon Davis, and that's going to be it for him. Those are going to be the chances that he takes on 2nd and 3rd down. That's pretty much going to be it. When it comes to his money, right now, Kirk Cousins, as it stands, Kirk Cousins is getting paid, what is it, 26? Right now he's getting paid 24. $24 million in 2017, and all of that is fully guaranteed. After this season, we have the option to franchise tag him again. If we franchise tag him again, that would mean that Kirk Cousins would be making $34 million a year. $34 million for 2018, 100% of it guaranteed. And he would be taking up over 20% of this team's salary cap. That, to me, is beyond the scope of crazy. That's beyond the scope of asinine. That is the ultimate dumb move. I've heard other vidmakers talk about what would be dumb. What would be dumb is if we did this. What would be dumb if we did that. What would be dumb is if we ended up doing this, this, and this, and ended up getting that. To me, the ultimate trump card of stupidity is to sign him to another franchise tag deal, guaranteeing him $34 million for 2018. Taking up that much salary. I don't understand why we even signed him this year under a salary cap. Next year, we are out of control. We are 3 sheets of the wind. We are a sailboat that is very much out of control. Me personally, if I was to offer Kirk Cousins, if I was owner for the time being, and if I was negotiating Kirk Cousins' contract, and I had a team of lawyers and my salary cap man, and I'm discussing strategy, I'm telling you right now, as an owner, I'm taking a look at this deal and I'm saying, look, I'm willing to be generous only because I know he's going to be getting his guaranteed money. He's going to ask for an asinine amount of guaranteed money because that's just what the consequence and the cost at giving him these franchise tags is going to cost you. You're not going to get, a David Carr situation in Oakland. You're not going to get that here in Washington. He knows he hasn't been very much loved here. He's going to go for as much guaranteed money as he possibly can because he knows he can get it elsewhere. He's going to ask for an asinine amount of money. We're talking about $80, $90 million guaranteed. That's one of the highest. That's one of the highest contract values as far as guaranteed money is concerned. There's not hardly any other quarterbacks out there that have asked for that much money, and he will get it. He will pretty much get it. There are other teams that would give it to him. But when I'm negotiating his contract with that guaranteed money, $80 million guaranteed, I'd give it to him. I'd be generous. So yes, I understand this situation where we screwed you over. We've hung you out to dry on many separate occasions. We have not signed you a long-term deal because we haven't believed in you. We wanted Robert Griffin III more than we wanted you. You've went through a lot of crap with us. We have not given you an environment where you feel comfortable to proliferate your profession on a successful level. We apologize about that, but we're willing to believe in you. We're willing to believe in Jay Gruden as a coach that we believe that you kind of respect. We've extended Jay Gruden, and we want to extend you an offer for a long-term deal. We're going to guarantee you $80 million. I would guarantee him $80 million. Would I go up to $90 million? I probably would. But you know what? What's another $10 mil? But I am not going to pay him anything more than 5 for 120. There's no way I'm going to pay him more than a $120 million deal for 5 years. That's basically going to put him at $24 mil a year. I'm not giving him more than $24 mil a year. If you're looking up at $25 and $26 and $27 million a year, I'm going to tell you to go pound sand. I'm going to tell you to go elsewhere. And you're going to get it elsewhere. You're going to get 26, 27 mil elsewhere. But I'm not giving you anything above. Taking a look at who I'm not necessarily willing to go beyond, taking a look at some of the other contracts that are out there. Guys, I'm not going above the Andrew Luck deal. I'm not. I'm not going to go up there in the Derek Carr, and I'm not going up there in the Matt Stafford numbers. I'm not going to have him pulling in more money than Matt Stafford. Is he better than Matt Stafford? I don't think he is better than Matt Stafford, to tell you the truth. If you gave me Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford on this football team, which one would I take? I'd take Matt Stafford. On a bargain basement team, I think Matt's the better player. He's been in the league longer, and I think he's worth, he's definitely worth the money that he's got over there in Detroit. He's asked for that much money. Is he going to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. That they got a pretty good team, but I don't know. He signed a really, really big deal. But I would have a huge issue with paying him more than what Andrew Luck. And Andrew, is he a better quarterback than Andrew Luck at this point? Yes. I think he probably is. But Andrew's playing for a really, really crappy Indianapolis team that is basically circling the drain at this point. I would not say that is us here in Washington. But I'm not going to pay him above... I'm not paying him above 24 mil. There's no way. 24 mil a year at $80 million guaranteed. Take it or leave it. If he's going to leave it, which if I was Kirk Cousins, I would take a look at 24 mil a year and I would say, look, do I enjoy myself here in Washington? Could I see myself shooting a little bit low because I know I could ask for more and probably get it? But how much do I actually like being here in Washington? Could I see myself staying here for 24 mil a year? If it was guaranteed 5 years, hey, I could possibly see myself doing that. Or is God going to tell him, no, don't stay. Washington doesn't like you. You don't like them. Go elsewhere. This situation with these teams that are potentially looking at him, San Francisco taking themselves off the board with this new deal that they have made with Garoppolo. This doesn't surprise me. I think San Francisco has taken a look at their situations and have taken their future out of Washington's hands. I think they know that Washington has no intention of giving him up to his former coach, Kyle Shanahan. I don't think that they are... I think they sense our apprehension in doing that. And rather than pit their future on our decision, they're taking their future in their own hands. And they're saying, we're going to go in this direction. We don't care what the hell it is that you guys do. And I think they're right. I think that under Kyle Shanahan's system, you can put a lot of different quarterbacks in. I think he's that good of a coach. I think he's that good of a quarterback coach to be able to say that and to be able to do that. So would you wait around for Kirk Cousins? Maybe not. Maybe not. Would I want to get in the bidding war? No, because I want as much salary cap space as possible to revamp that team, and that's exactly what they've done. And they need that salary cap space to remake what that franchise is all about. And signing Kirk Cousins to that big of a deal is not going to make any sense for them. So I get it. Now, I also know what you're saying, BFG, but here's the thing. Salary cap goes up this year. Wouldn't you be willing to concede to go up to about 27, 28 mil a year? Given the salary cap's going up. No, that $24 million figure is under the consideration of a salary cap increase. So even after a salary cap increase, would I pay him above 24? No, I wouldn't. I don't think Kirk Cousins is worth more than $24 million as far as his performance on the field. If you're asking me to pay the going rate of a quarterback of Kirk Cousins' stature, the answer is no. I would not do it. Can you win without a good starting quarterback? No, you cannot. Can you win without Kirk Cousins? Yeah, you can. I think you can. It would take rebuilding, and it would set us back a couple years, but the way this team is going right now, guys, I mean, is that really such a bad thing? We're kind of looking at that already. Now, moving on, the big thing to me in the decision for this situation with Kirk Cousins is percentage of salary cap. The percentage of the salary cap is huge. If you are looking at, I said this before in a previous video, if you are looking at making anywhere from a certain percentage, that's your contract plus your guaranteed money gives you a cap hit. The percentage of that cap hit. If you are looking at quarterbacks that are above anywhere from 11 to 12% of that salary cap is going towards your quarterback, it's pretty much a statistical fact that those guys get paid. Those guys get paid for their performance on the football field, but very, 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 very rarely do those guys go on to win championships. I am not into signing a quarterback to get a winning to win football games in this league. I am willing to sign a quarterback to win a Super Bowl. To me, it's all about winning the Super Bowl, going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. How many of these quarterbacks can you guys name that have gone on to win Super Bowls whose salary has taken up anywhere from 11 to 12% of their cap? And mind you, if you sign Kirk Cousins to a 26, 27, 28 million dollar contract with the guaranteed money that he's looking at, we are looking at far above 12% of your salary. If he signs this $34 million deal 2018 under a franchise tag again, that's 20% of your salary going to your quarterback. You tell me, how do you rebuild a football team and win with the weapons around him on offense and defense when your quarterback is taking up 20%? It doesn't happen. That scenario hasn't happened yet. 20% of the salary? I don't think so. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live, still playing today, Tom Brady, isn't even close to that number. I think he's, 8% of his contract? 8% of his contract going out for their team he's an 8% hit to his team. That's Tom Brady. So I'm finding the argument to paying this guy. Would I put Kirk Cousins in the category of an Aaron Rodgers, a Drew Brees, a Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady? Hell no. Absolutely not. But is that what we're talking about as far as going rate for quarterbacks this year? No. Those two have nothing to do with each other. The going rate for quarterbacks, you need to start taking a look at some of these contract deals that have already taken place, especially within the last couple of years. You need to start taking a look at guys like, here in this last couple of years, we've got the Derek Carr situation, the Matt Stafford situation, the Ryan Tannehill situation. Alex Smith is definitely up there as well. Another individual that reminds, Marcus Mariota, he ended up getting his payday, and also some of the guys aren't even necessarily playing that much anymore. Brock Osweiler, who bumped everybody's salary cap to $20 million. It's little things like that. The longer that we've waited, the more we've dug a hole for ourselves, and now we are in a monumental hole. I don't think that we can win a Super Bowl with a quarterback taking 20%. I don't think you can do it. You show me how we can do it. I think that you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins if you have a Joe Flacco type style of team, a top 5, maybe even top 3 defense. Top 3 defense with some really, really good options as far as offensive weapons go. A couple, maybe a deep threat, a good third down option, a great tight end, and a 1,000-yard rusher. That's what the Baltimore Ravens had. Okay, the Baltimore Ravens, taking a look at some of the individuals on there, they had the pair of Jacoby Jones and Torrey Smith. Not to mention Ray Rice was running that running game as far as that. That was a really good, solid offensive team with a top defense. That's the only way I think that you can win with a Kirk Cousins. Is Kirk Cousins, if you put Tom Brady on this football team or Aaron Rodgers on this football team right now, we could probably still eke out maybe 2 or 3 victories with all these people injured. They're those types of quarterbacks. But we don't have that type of quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is never going to be that guy. If Kirk Cousins ends up walking, if he ends up testing the free agent market. I think that there's a number of teams that have been mentioned, and I think there's another team that is sliding underneath the surface that may surprise some people. There's always one that's underneath the surface that not necessarily everybody's thinking about, and I think there's an argument for them. The top teams that I have heard, obviously Cleveland is hard up for a quarterback. That situation doesn't change. The Arizona Cardinals, Carson Palmer may very well have played his last days in Arizona. They're going to be needing a quarterback, whether they like it or not. The New York Jets are in a dire straight situation. Matt Forte starting to complain about play calling, and a lot of the complaints and a lot of the turmoil that the team is facing over there is indicative of a losing record. They could definitely use help at quarterback. Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger decides. I've been hearing that one. That's a scenario-based situation as to whether Pittsburgh looks towards the future. They could end up drafting, or they could end up looking at free agency, looking at joining the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. Jacksonville is another team that has been looked at as a possibility. In fact, I put Jacksonville right up there probably with Cleveland and New York. Denver would definitely be a team. I don't think Denver would want to pay the type of money that Kirk Cousins is asking for. They're not necessarily, I think they are a little bit, well, no, because they didn't necessarily pay into that Brock Osweiler situation. That was the Houston Texans. I don't think they're necessarily willing to pay top-flight money for a top-flight quarterback. There's only been maybe one or two times when they've actually done that, and I don't think they put Kirk Cousins in that company of quarterbacks to give him that kind of money. So I would say that Denver's probably a little bit of a stretch. The team that I don't necessarily think that everybody is thinking of, the sleeper. And I've taken a look at all the teams here, and I've given a fairly decent argument as to why a lot of these teams would not be looking for a quarterback, because they've already have pretty much their quarterback of the future or their mainstay. The quarterback that I think that a team would probably be looking at the possibility of a Kirk Cousins and paying him his money, especially after the last couple of years. I think the New York Giants are up there. I think the New York Giants are a sleeper. I think the New York Giants could possibly be taking a look at a Kirk Cousins situation. Would they pay him his money? I don't know, but I can tell you right now, Eli Manning's a 36-year-old quarterback. And there's been talk amongst the media for the last couple of years of the possibility of replacing Eli. At what point does Eli want to hang it up? At what point does the organization say, we've gotten just about as much as we can out of this product? We've sucked it dry as it possibly can go, and we don't think we can get any more out of it. It's time to move on. I think we're at about that spot. 36 years old is really, really old for a quarterback, and I'm not necessarily talking about Tom Brady numbers. That guy's a phenom on many different fronts. Is Eli Manning that phenom? Probably not. They could possibly be looking for a quarterback in the future, and who better to train up than somebody who knows the division and knows how to win against the division. Somebody who knows that Washington Redskin defense better than anybody. Somebody who knows how to win against Philly. Somebody who does marginally well against Dallas. That, to me, would put Kirk Cousins at the top of my list of free agent quarterbacks. I'd be looking at somebody to replace the franchise quarterback that is or was Eli Manning. Those are possibilities. Things to think about as far as Kirk Cousins front goes. Obviously, there's a lot that I can sit here and discuss and talk about in regards to Kirk. I'm not necessarily going to do that here, but I'm not going to go any further with it. At the end of the day, really, that's pretty much more than I really want to talk about it. But moving on to the next subject, our mindset from this point on. We have suffered a lot of injuries, significant injuries, probably the worst season in a long time that I can remember. There have been a couple seasons that I can remember where it's been really, really bad as far as injuries, and it's been a long time since that year. But this year, we have been hit the last 3 weeks, significant injuries, and we're looking at people that are going to be out for a significant amount of time. And our coach comes out and says, we still have a lot of season left to play. We do still have a lot of season left to play, a lot of evaluation to go. But, honestly, how much of a winning record are we looking at with this group of daisy-fresh backups that we have playing on the offensive line, the defensive line, and the backfield, with as hurt as we are? Some of these injuries, how significant are they? I think we need to take a look at the season and say, hey, if we're gauging the severity of some of these injuries, are we looking at the next couple of, in the next week or two that we could be getting a lot of our players back? If the answer is no, then maybe we need to start taking a look at evaluating for next year. That's tough to think about given how this year started. The potential that this team had. This team may very well not see the potential of a Sunday night game against Oakland again this year, just given the injuries that we have had sustained. Pectoral muscle torn, ligament damage, rotator cuff. We've got Liz Frank injuries. We've got ankle injuries. We've got hairline fractures and ribs. Trenton Williams is possibly looking at the possibility of not coming back. I mean, we've got some pretty significant stuff here, and we just lost a couple more major keys. Matt Ioannidis is looking like he's going to have hand surgery. Whether he plays with a cast is going to be debatable. It's possible that he may not necessarily come back for a number of years. We lost our big rookie at the defensive position in Jonathan Allen. We lost him for the season. I was surprised that we actually saw Josh Norman out there. I would be very, very scared if he went down for an even longer period of time because we brought him back too soon. Taking a look at 2012, when Robert Griffin III, mentioning his name again, getting hurt in that game against Seattle. At that point, if you remember, it was all about how stupid Mike Shanahan was for keeping him in too long when he had that kind of an injury and playing him. But yet not a lot of people were talking about that when we were playing him. It wasn't until after the fact, revisionist history being what it is, we get to go back and make accusations when we know the benefit of hindsight. At what point do you play that fine line between not having any balls for playing somebody and being stupid for playing them too much? That's that dance that we're in right now. I'd rather not lose people for the season. If we're bringing them back premature with still these weakened ligament tissue injury damages that we've got on this defensive and offensive front, you are just a razor's edge from losing those guys for a year. So we need to properly gauge and evaluate just the severity and the significance of these injuries that we're sustaining, and we need to start taking a look at some of these key members we need to start taking a look at next season's offseason, this coming offseason, and how we evaluate where we need depth. We need depth at this and this and this position, because once this guy went down, once Josh Norman went down, we needed help at both corner and safety. Well, then maybe we need to start taking a look at some depth in those positions. I've been saying we needed safety for a long time. That'd be one of my highest draft picks coming in that next season. But obviously, given these injuries have hurt us in other areas, we need to evaluate those and prepare for those for this coming off season. And that's what I'm doing. What do we do with the $6 million project that is Terrell Pryor? We've already got articles talking about how we'd be justified in sitting this kid. Sitting him. Sitting a $65 million project. Am I against that? Hell no. Would I sit Terrell Pryor? Yes. I would sit Terrell Pryor for at least a couple of weeks. I'd have him parked on the picnic bench and I'd say, hey, it'd be a test of character. He says he wants it. He says he wants to come out and prove himself. There's a really good way to do that. How are you going to take a benching? Are you going to bitch? Are you going to come down on yourself and drag your feet? Are you going to hang your head? Are you going to feel sorry for yourself? Or are you going to wipe your tears away and get your ass out there and work as hard as you possibly can to get back in the lineup and catch the goddamn ball? What are you going to do? What is in here? And I'm pointing at my chest. You can't see it. I'm pointing at my chest and in my heart. Not what's up here. The boo-hoo me that's up here. I'm talking about what's in your heart. What type of character do you have? Because that's going to dictate whether I'm going to take a chance on you in the future, and beyond that, whether I'm going to sign you to another deal outside of this 2017 season, because it's not looking too good right now. Not looking too good at all. And Josh Doxson, do you leave Josh Doxson in his position, or do you take a look at rotating him out too? A guy who's only played in this league for 1 year. A guy who has the potential. Josh Doxson would light it up with any other football team in this organization. I don't necessarily think he's given a fair shake as far as we are concerned. I think that we were so turned off by the split end situation right now. I think it's probably getting to him. But I would look at increasing some looks for this kid. And Ryan Grant's, I think, earned himself some really, really good chances. And that's it. Beyond him, that's Jamison Crowder, and that's your wide receiving core, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty much it. So properly evaluating your situation, planning, this is right about the time you need to start planning for your offseason, and how you attack that offseason is right here, right now. Taking a look at how you were going through your season and evaluating. Start looking at quarterbacks. You should have been doing that a couple years ago. Hopefully you're doing that now. So that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen, for the BFG show. I don't know if I'm going to come out with another one of these. I might, depending upon the topics, depending upon the subject matter. So hopefully you guys are all doing well. Leave your comments down below. Like, subscribe, share if you haven't subscribed. Good to have you guys along. Listen to me rant on about these particular subjects. But anyways, that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, for us fans, the Twin Feather, we ride together. Redskins for life. Peace out. We'll catch you next time.